Hey everybody, I'm getting ready to do a little bit more maintenance on my boat, on my 2018 Chaparral with the Mercruiser Alpha 1. One thing I haven't done yet, and it's been several years now, is I haven't replaced the water pump impeller. So I'm going to dig in and do that now. Before I do, I'm going to caution that I'm going to show you how I'm doing things and how I do it. I've done these several times over the years, quite a few times. But I use a Mercruiser shop manual as my reference, and I stick to it as best I can. And you know, they have a lot of cautions and a lot of warnings in there about various things for safety and how to put things together. And I just have to caution you that if you know, I'm going to record this, and I'll show you how I do it. But you need to be very, very careful from a safety standpoint and from you know, how you perform things. And I really recommend you get a shop manual and follow it, because if you do things wrong, I mean, this is water pump. You know, you get out somewhere and you can end up burning up your engine. There are all kinds of things that can go wrong. And so you have to make sure that you follow the procedures, and I guess we'll go from there. Now, this process will start by draining the final drive fluid, the gear lube, which on this boat's a little bit more tricky because it has an oil monitor in the engine compartment. And in the older ones, I could always unsnap a strap and flip it on its side and empty it out. This one is permanently bolted in, and there are actually two service manuals. There's an engine manual and there's a drive unit manual. The drive unit manual would tell you to empty the bottle. The engine manual says, no, don't empty the bottle. It just says to remove the screw at the bottom and remove the cap and let it drain. And I know from experience that it takes quite a while to drain. So I wish there was a better way, but so far I don't see one. In the engine compartment, the drive belt seems to kind of be in the way. The worst thing you can do for a drive belt is get oil or coolant on it. You really want to keep it clean. So that may be the reason they don't want you tipping it and spilling it. So, in any case, that's where I'm going to start, and we'll go from there. So to begin, I've already removed the beauty covers. So the next step is to remove this lid from the reservoir. That is the bottle, and it's going to take me some time to let it drain, but let me go and get that started. Alright, so I've got the drive tipped up all the way, and the vent plug is still in per procedure, and this one, the drain plug, is on the right hand side. And I got to get my biggest screwdriver that fits that slot, and we'll pop her loose. And one of the things that you want to watch for as this starts to drain is whether it has water in it. Whether you get any water, or whether you get any, whether it's foamy. Because if it's leaking, the water in the oil isn't a good lubricant, and you know, you can kind of end up with a mess. End up with a mess means damaging the gears, damaging the bearings. So if you end up getting water out, what you want to do, what you could have is, there are seals behind the propeller. There's an oil seal on the shaft for the propeller, and there's another oil seal underneath the water pump. And if either one of those is leaking and as I say, putting water into your into your gear oil, then you need to get those seals repaired or replaced. And so far, I don't see anything bad coming out of mine, so that makes me happy. Water will usually settle to the bottom, so we'll just let her go for a bit here. I also did lower the drive. In the old days, my older boat, the screw is on the other side, but it's down in the bottom of the bullet, so you wanted it tipped all the way up. This one is back a little bit further, and so I'm dropping it down so it gets a better. I think it's draining a little faster this way. So got some water in the pan, but that's from water coming off of the drive. When I lowered it, I had got some more. So we'll let it keep going here for a bit. Well, it took a while, but the inside bottle seems to have drained. And by a while, I'll say probably 45 minutes. So now I'm going to pop out the vent here on the other side. And it should continue to drain. Let's see how we do. Yeah, maybe that's everything. We'll just give her a minute. Looks good. Alright. I'm going to put this just thread this plug in so that it doesn't continue to weep. There'll be a little bit in there. Alright, with the oil drained, and this tipped up enough that you can reach. Get that out of the way for now. There's a quick connect, and it depends on how old your unit is, how easy that quick connect is, which kind it is. But this one is a squeeze and remove. You squeeze a button. Up inside here, there's a fitting, and on this one anyway, you push the button, and you push the button and lift it up like this, and there's a fitting in there, which you'll be able to see in a bit. There's also, next to that fitting, there's a nut or a bolt. I think it's the head of a bolt. The book calls it a nut, but I think it depends on, again, on what model year you have. So I'll need to get that one loosened up. And then I need to pull this plug, because there'll be another one. There's another one in that hole that goes to this. There's either a trim tab or just an anode. In my case, it's an anode, and that needs to be, and that one needs to be removed as well, or at least loosened. And then we've got 4 bolts here that I need to back out, or bolts and nut sets. So it should be 1 on the end, 2 here, 2 on the other side, and the 1 in the rear. And I'm going to leave the propeller on, because there'll be a point. Well, first of all, I'm going to go put it in forward gear, and I'm going to leave the propeller on because we're going to drop this lower unit, and when it goes back to be installed, you may need to turn the propeller to get the spline lined up, in order to get the spline lined up here. I'll also say is I haven't done it yet, but recently, but I do need to remove the propeller and grease the propeller shaft. You really should do that probably every year or so. Alright, let me get an end wrench in here. See if this will, it's like a 1/2 inch is about right. Got one of these flex head ratcheting end wrenches. Ratcheting box wrench. I love these. There's a time when I didn't have them, and it was I didn't know how much I would use them until I got a set. Feels like it's also a 1/2 inch. Okay, we can take that one out. And I'm just going to leave that bolt sit in there, just for right now. Get this front one loosened up all the way. There we go. Now, the service manual assumes that you have this in a shop, and that to do the water pump that you would pull the entire drive off at this point, remove the drive and put the whole drive on the bench, and then take this apart and lift the gear housing off the lower unit. There are times where I will pull this off to grease the splines up front, but it really isn't ready. I don't need to. I know they were in it. The dealer did service work on it 2 years ago under warranty, and so he had it out. Now, you do need to be a little careful, because at this point, the lower unit actually could just fall off. There's nothing holding it anymore. It should be, unless I've missed something, everything should be done. Oh, there's one more bolt in here. Okay, so I've got the one out of the front. I've got 2 out of each side. I've got the one for the trim tab done. And then there's one more 9/16 up here under the back. You can run that one out. Here's the housing now that it's been removed, and what I purchased was one of these impeller kits. It's not just an impeller, it's an impeller and gaskets and seals, and a tool that you need to install the seal properly. If you don't use the tool and you don't, you need a tool to seat this seal correctly. So, in any case, we'll kind of take a quick look here. So you can kind of see the splined shaft and the water pump housing. Let's see if I can get you a better angle on this. Alright, so here's your shaft. This is your shift mechanism. This is that, this is the connector for that speedometer sensor. I said you had to press it and remove it. This is the water pump housing here. And this is the water tube when the output of the water pump feeds upward. And there's a rubber dam back here. Some of the older ones had aluminum, but this one's newer. It's got the rubber style. We can lift this off, and it was installed incorrectly. Look at that. It has an O-ring, and that O-ring has actually been pushed out of position. It was probably mostly sealing, but that's not so good. Or it would seem it's not so good. Looks like it got caught being installed. In any case, there should be new seals for that. And otherwise it looks like it's in good condition. So these are 5/16 down here. Back these screws out. Alright, all 4 screws are out. Then we can lift this guy off. Okay. So there's that seal that goes on top. Set that aside. This is there's your water pump impeller and your pump housing. And then we got a set of gaskets and a drive key. And then this is the seal. This seal seals the oil in the lower unit. Alright, so that's how these came apart. 2 gaskets with a metal spacer. I'm just going to set them aside for a moment. We'll turn this guy. There we go. It's got a pretty good set to it, doesn't it? I mean, they're straightening out. They're not cracked, but I'd say it's probably time. And if you look at the housing itself, it's not scratched or scored or scarred up any. It looks pretty good. The instructions in the service manual are to inspect this every year, but frankly, if you're going to take it down this far, it's kind of like you might as well go ahead and replace it. For the amount of work that it takes, you might as well. Plus you replace all the seals when you do this, so we can clean that up. and wipe down the surfaces here where it seats. In the kit, we have a nice new one. And we have a set of gaskets and a new steel plate. Yep, new set of seals all the way around. And then there's also this little plastic thing, which is a tool that is supposed to set this seal down to the correct height. And you can't buy that tool separately, it only comes in the kit. So if you buy just an impeller, you don't have any way to put the seal back on. Again, you want an impeller kit. If you think the housing's bad, that it's worn or things are worse, you can buy kits that have more parts than this, but typically this is sufficient. Alright, so now I've got O-rings, seal. Alright, so we can start reassembling. So we have a new plate, and you got to make sure that the plate goes back the same way. This is how I took everything off. So it goes like that. It has a gasket like this on the bottom, like that. You gotta make sure it goes the right way. So I can drop that on. Let's just make sure. I think if you put it on the wrong way, the holes won't line up. But that way looks okay. This way does not. Okay, so that one, which lines up with the water passage, and then metal plate, and then this guy, which also should line up, and then that's pretty much how it all came apart. Although for some reason this one doesn't look right. Did I get it upside down? Yes, I did. It's got a sealing bead, and the sealing bead goes up, not down. So that lines up all the bolt holes. Alright, so we're all good there. Wipe down the shaft a little bit more. Okay. I have a little tube of, I've also got a big tube of what they call the 2,4-C with PTFE grease. So we lay that down and get the new key out. And they want a little bit of grease on the back of the key to hold it in place. So we drop that in its spot. Okay, I got the shaft pretty well cleaned up. I used a soft scraper on it so it wouldn't scratch anything. But I don't know what that residue's from. But there certainly was some there, so take care of that. That one's the old one. We can set that aside. Then the new, let's see, the key is greased and in. I actually also put a little grease down on the surface of the aluminum to kind of protect the paint a little bit. There was some on there when I took it apart, so. Alright, so this guy can go over the key like that. I'd forgotten about it, but I went and fetched a couple of drill bits. These are like about 3/16. I actually have some numbered ones. They're just a little bigger than 3/16. But just something to hold the gaskets in alignment while you put the housing on. Then they tell you to go ahead and grease the inside of the housing lightly. We don't need a ton of it, but we do need a little, so that the impeller goes in easier. At this point, the impeller is down over the key. It's locked to the shaft. And then for this one, with a standard rotation housing, just to rotate the shaft clockwise while pushing the body down. So what you kind of end up doing is, what you end up doing is put this down over the pins. I've done this without pins, and it'll drive you nuts in the end. It's probably, the best thing would be some 5/16 threaded bolts with the heads cut off that you could finger thread in, but right now I don't have those, so I'm going to rotate the shaft and try to push that guy down. Come on. There it goes. Okay, so now it's down. Like so. And the gaskets are still mostly lined up. And then we can take the screws and I'm going to lubricate the threads just a little. It does not indicate in the manual that you should Loctite these bolts or anything. So I'm going to put just a little bit of something on the threads for I'll say corrosion protection into the aluminum. I think the bolts are stainless, but alright, so then we feed a couple of these guys in there. Hand started. And wiggle it good and try to get the other one hand started. You just do not want to put a wrench on these and cross thread them, because you could ruin the whole housing. And I suppose you could drill it out and helicoil it or something, but let's avoid that if we can help it. Got that one, and got that one. The grease, I'm having a little bit of trouble grabbing it with my fingers. Use a paper towel. Yeah, I've done it without pins, and it'll drive you crazy. Because it gets very difficult to get those gaskets all three layers lined up again. Alright. So now we can run them down. And use a socket to help. So snug that. Snug this one. Snug this one. The spec on these guys is 60 inch-pounds. Let's see if I can get the wrench on it. It's a tight squeeze, but there we go. Just try and go around and hit them all. 60 on that one. There's 60 on that one. Still didn't get all the crap off of there. I don't know what that's from. It's almost like exhaust residue. And I guess exhaust does go down through the housing, so. Alright. So we got that. Then we want to take some more of this 2,4-C stuff. And they want me to lube the shaft with it. I don't think I actually have to lube the splines, but because I think that goes up and gets gear oil, but there we go. But we will have to have it lubed to go into the upper seal. So there we go. Got that. And we got a new face seal. Like that. It needs to go down over the shaft, and we don't want to cut it on the splines, which is another good reason to have the splines lubricated. It's one of the toughest things for a seal is going over. You risk cutting them on a spline, so I want you to go about halfway down, and then that's the setting tool that goes over the top of it. Then what we want to do is lift the drive shaft, because it's got a little bit of play, and then push the seal down with the tool until it's set. It won't go any further, and then let go. And then you take the tool off and save it for a rainy day. But now the seal should be perfectly set in place. I'm just going to double check it just for fun. Yeah, because the seal, lift and push, and it gets her down there, and it flares it out a little bit. Alright. And I've still got some grease up here. Just keep that lubricated for going back together. Peel out these two seals and replace them. Yeah, that guy wasn't ever right. There it goes. Get the other seal out of there. Get some of the junk out of there, some of the orange sealant. Tuck those in there. Like so. So that one goes here. I'm going to be very gentle with it after when I found I took it apart. Okay, we got that, and the other one is set. I'll check on a couple of things, and I'm about ready to put it back up. Alright, now this is probably the most challenging part of the job, because we have to get this dude fed back in there. And it's heavy. And it takes alignment. And I do have one bolt here that is that I will put in the rear. There is also a quad ring seal here that it was still stuck to the underside, so I got that replaced. So we're now at a point where we ought to be able to go in. The shift lever has to be forward to match the gear housing. So let's take a shot at it here and see if we can get it.
As you can see here, getting this back together is really a challenge. First of all, it probably would be better as a two-person job because you really almost need two pairs of hands. So I'm struggling. I'm using some wooden blocks underneath to try to help it up and get it closer. But you have a dowel pin at the front, you have a dowel pin at the rear that both need to line up and go into the upper housing. The splined shaft needs to go into its coupling up near the top, and the spline has to line up. And then the water tube has to line up, and of course it's kind of cone shape, but everything has to kind of go together. Oh, and then the front, you have your lever that engages the shift mechanism. So if your shifter is forward, then that lever should be lined up straight fore and aft. And when you get it close, you kind of need to turn that propeller just a little bit sometimes to rotate the shaft just a little so that the spline aligns, and then it'll pop in. So you'll see me struggle with this thing a number of times. I've got it on high speed, but you ought to know that it's not trivial. So you kind of keep going at it, and then all of a sudden, pop, it'll drop in.
Something isn't lining up right. Let's see what we got. So close yet so far. There it goes. Ka-chunk. Phew. Alright guys, well what I'm doing right now is I've got my knees under here, I have my other knee under here, and I had to turn the propeller essentially backwards to get, because I just wasn't getting the drive spline lined up. Well folks, I'm pulling this back apart. I got it all together, and then found this laying underneath the boat trailer. It's a tube that belongs in the water pump section. What it's supposed to do is help guide things together. So the water tube goes in and it helps guide things together on reinstallation. And I was having quite a fight with it. And I've done these before. I should have known better. But, you know, sometimes you make mistakes. Well, willing to fess up and say I made one. So I've got almost all the bolts out. I'm going to drop this back down again and install this piece and put it back together right. Means I had to go drain the gear grease again and sigh, but I'd rather have it together right, so I'm going to fix it. I expect this dude's going to want to drop, so. Okay. One bolt and one star washer. And you can see it's already part way down. So let's see if we can. And then that tube belongs in here. Like so. I'm pretty sure I had this together correctly and that the water tube was in where it belonged, but that tube belongs in there, and if I didn't put it back in, if I left that out, I think that would have been a mistake. So better to take it back apart, do it right. There's a water tube up here, right there. Get fed into that, which should help guide it all together. So, use my blocks to get it close. Shazam, there we go. Man, you guys gotta hold your mouth just right. And all of a sudden it falls in place. If I can just get this bolt in there and get it started. Once you get that first bolt in there, you're usually in pretty good shape. Now I got that water tube in there. It's in like finger tight mode now. Okay. Then we'll drop this one in the front in that holds the other end. Be easier if I tip the drive up, but I'm not ready to do that quite yet. So I'll just reach gently and get it started so I don't lose it. Good old flex head ratchet will help me. That was tight. That one's tight. All right, now we're doing better. Alright, now I'm going to tip it up some so that I have an easier time reaching some of those bolts. want 28 on, so that's about it. Then there's trim tab that goes back up in the base, and the gotta put it in the right way here. And that one was, I believe, a 1/2 inch, and the bolt has to be in the housing the whole time, or you'll have a devil of a time getting it back through. That one's supposed to be 23. Okay. Put the rubber plug back in. Now what I'd like to see is if I can get the one on the front, which is another one that should be 35. I don't know if I can get a torque wrench on that one. It's kind of back in there. No, I'm not gonna. So that one I'm just gonna do with an end wrench. Kind of make a guess. Okay. So we got that. Run these other 4 down with run them down with a ratchet. Now then, I couldn't get that one. Let me get the speedometer piece in the front here, because it should be ready to go back on. There we go. Pushed her on. Very nice. Okay. Now I'm going to put her back down and torque those other ones. And these guys are supposed to be 35 also. I forgot, I need to lift it to get those two. The side braces for the lower unit, for the gear case, interfere with getting the wrench on. So I went too far too fast. Sneak that guy in there. Probably not that way. Probably have to do it without the extension. Oh, still can't. Oh, there it is. Okay. Alright, all back together. Now I just need to get my pump and refill the gear case with fresh lower unit grease and fill the bottle in the engine compartment. And the water pump is done. And then after that I can go about my normal winterizing process. That's how you do a water pump. The toughest part of the job is getting that lower unit back up and engaged, because you have to get the alignment pins on the lower drive housing, on the lower housing into the drive housing, and you have to have the shift mechanism up front, that bar has to line up, and you have to get the splines lined up. So you kind of need to work it up slowly, and you have to turn the prop, you do it counterclockwise, and just keep nudging it until the spline engages, and then you got to work it up until the water tube is fully seated, and then all of a sudden pop, she's up and she's done. So as I said, I'm going to go put the grease in it now. Probably no need to watch that. You pump it in from the bottom until it comes out the fill hole, until it comes out the vent hole, and then you fill the bottle and let it run downstream until it also starts overflowing the vent throughout the vent hole, and then you should be good to go for spring, till spring. And as I say, now that I got this part done, I can go I'll do the engine oil change and the other winterizing stuff. That's all for now. I hope you enjoyed that video. If so, please subscribe to my channel.